all the pens, stickers, and everything you're going to need to do our exercise. And we'll get started in a few minutes. The ones on the tables. Yep. We're going to give everybody one more minute just to get.
Totally, take your time.
Yeah.
Take your time.
You know how the line goes.
We got to get our hellos in,
Yep.
Get some coffee.
Yep.
Played church.
Yeah, did you? Yeah. Yeah, in school. Yeah.
Church, school, and doctor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maureen, I was just saying that Wells, grandson Wells, when we would go to St. Margaret's Chapel after communion, and he wanted to be the priest and give me the bread.
Yes.
So it's like, yay, catch on to it.
Absolutely. Celebrate that.
My dad and Anti comes to join us. Yeah.
We're ready now. So welcome, everybody. We have a special guest on forum today. As I mentioned during my sermon, Loren Dixon is the director of Renewal Works at Forward Movement. She and I have been in conversation on and off for about 3 years about the Renewal Works process. Who remembers doing the inventory? Yay! Wonderful. So I don't probably need to explain what it is. We've done it twice, but we're going to be diving into what our results told us about us in this last round of the inventory and kind of what kind of directions we've seen from one result to the next. So I don't want to take any more of our time. I'm going to have Loren join us and tell us all about us. Thanks, Loren.
Good morning. Am I up on the screen?
You're on the screen.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to be with you. I'm Loren Dixon, director of Renewal Works. I have been at Renewal Works 11 years now. Jay Sidebotham was the founder of Renewal Works, and I went to work with him I thought, on a 6-month sort of project to get this started, and I'm still here, and it's been a really fun and fulfilling job. So I'm very happy to be with you all this morning, and particularly to talk about Christ Episcopal Church. So Renewal Works' mission is really to give churches information around themselves, like who are they, what is the parish made up of, what are people looking for from their church, and from that research we also have best practice principles. Like, we understand the churches that are the most spiritually vital, what are they doing and what's different, and they don't share a denomination or area of the country or a size, sort of traditional metrics of success, but they do share sort of 5 best practices. And so then we also look at how churches are doing in those 5 best practices and how might they do things differently. So what I wanted to do today, it's always interesting when we have churches come back and do Renewal Works multiple times, because we have the opportunity to look at how they've changed. And so you all might remember that in 2022, you did the Spiritual Life Inventory, and then you did it again this year in 2025. You've actually changed so much. And so it's kind of fun for me to walk through all the changes and positive things that are going on at Christ Church. But I think the biggest opportunity of doing Renewal Works is really the chance to start a conversation and to just think about your own faith. And for a lot of us, we have been in church a long time. We have been coming. We have our friends. And maybe we haven't thought about that faith journey or why we're going to church. Oftentimes when we have young children and we bring them to church, there's really good reasons as to like why we want our children or to have a faith background. But sometimes for us as we get older and just this is our church home, we haven't thought as much about that. So it's really the opportunity to bring that back to the forefront. And if we think a little bit about our faith, if you think about your spiritual faith, like you think about your physical health, when we understand our physical health, that notion of like, I have some personal responsibility, what I eat, or if I get exercise, that all affects my physical health. But sometimes we don't equate our spiritual health the same way, or even think about our spirituality in that same way. Like, what if I had some skin in this game? Like, what if I thought about my faith during the week or employed some spiritual practices? Like, how might that change my my relationship with God and with the people around me? So that, I think, is the opportunity of Renewal Works, is to sort of crack open these conversations. They're not conversations that we typically have, or most Episcopal churches typically have, but people usually really like it. So I'm going to go through the report with you all today, and then at the end, you have a handout in front of you, and it's a little exercise that I thought we would do at the end. We call it the dot exercise, and it's basically the basic tenets of the Episcopal faith, and you all are going to choose the 5 that are most important to you. And then that'll be the red stickers, and then the 5 that you would like to know more about. And this is a great exercise because churches are usually highly clumped in a couple of belief statements. And so we'll leave today with some good understanding as to who you all are. Like, what is it that brings you together to this place? Like, what is it that you all value together? So that's how we'll end today. And all right, I am going to share my screen, and I'm getting a little glare. I'm thinking I should maybe just shut my blind. Yes, I am in Chicago. Wait, I'm still getting it. Okay. Yeah, I'm outside of Chicago. Oh, I don't know what it is. Okay, we're just going to go with it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this was the data report. And we've done this twice. And so we did 2 different data reports, and then we actually did a comparison report. And so I'm going to show you just a little bit. I'm going to hit some of the highlights of this report. So this was the report we just did in February. And I'm just going to zoom in here because it's hard to see. Okay, so the first place that I look is the demographics. So we know that 71 people responded to the spiritual life inventory for you all, and that was a 42% response rate from a Sunday attendance of 170. You're slightly smaller than when we did it in 2022, but still a good response rate that we feel like statistical accuracy. So 86% of the respondents are 50 or older, and 68% have been in the church 10 years or longer. So older and long tenured, slightly older and longer tenured than the Episcopal norm, which is the second set of data. Although this is a positive, 21% of the respondents have come to Christ Church within the last 1 to 5 years. And so that's a positive for that, and a change for you all from the last time that we took it. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to talk about where people are in their spiritual journeys. The methodology that Renewal Works uses is around this continuum, is around the notion of there are 4 stages of maturing in spiritual growth. And the way we define spiritual growth is growing in love of God and neighbor. So the first stage, and people, I should also say, you may not remember, but this is not an algorithm of 15 different questions that get crunched together to put you in this. It's basically 2 questions asked asked slightly different ways that you place yourself into these stages of the continuum. So the first one, exploring, that's like, I am taking my first steps. Like, I think I'm going to go to church when I go to sleep on Saturday night, but sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But when I go, something about it really speaks to me. Like, I feel connected to something within the church. Growing is like, I am more committed. Christ Church is important to me. But what happens between growing and deepening? And again, on this chart, it looks like we just go naturally, through the stages. The transition between growing and deepening is the most difficult transition to make. And you can see for the Episcopal norm, it's 53% get here and don't go farther. For the all church norm, it's 40%. So it's really across the board. What happens between growing and deepening is we develop a personal relationship with God. So for people in the deepening and centered, they feel God's presence in their daily life. They rely on that relationship with God in their life. For the people in growing, they haven't quite made that connection of a relationship with God, like a relationship that they feel and rely on. And so for the people in deepening and centered, they have this relationship that they rely on. So what drives them, deepening is like, I'm driving the car, God's sitting next to me. Most of the time I listen to the instructions. You know what? Sometimes I just know a faster way to get there, and I'm just going to do it myself. Centered is like, Jesus, take the wheel, the Carrie Underwood song. Like, I've given over the car. So when we talk about people in centered, and you can see it's 6% for you all, 5% for the entire Episcopal database, it is a very high bar. I mean, you are saying that your relationship with God is the most important relationship in your life. But for people in deepening and centered who have that relationship, they want to live that out, right? They want to live out their faith. So things like evangelism, they're willing to talk about their faith. Discipleship, they want to serve. They want spiritual mentors. They want spiritual friendships. They feel comfortable in their beliefs and their practices, and they want to live out that faith. For people in the explore and grow, explore is like, I'm taking my first steps, not totally sure why the colors change, not totally sure why we do the Eucharist each week. Also, why is there a portion of the service called the Eucharist, and then there is the actual Eucharist? Like, I'm still figuring out sort of the beliefs of the church. Growing is like, I'm committed, but I need help sort of establishing that relationship. And often for people in growing, it's about spiritual practice. So not unlike anything that we want to be proficient in, it's like giving ourselves the time, the dedication to establish that relationship. We would also say, allow the Holy Spirit into our hearts. But it's a lot about spiritual practices. So for people in Explore and Grow, the church itself is very important. So having a place where I can come that will teach, that will show me, model for me, help me, that's really important for people in the Explore and Grow. As you get to deepening and centered, the church is really important, and I want to come and worship together, but my relationship with God is superseding my church membership. So for you all, and what's interesting here is when we did the spiritual life inventory in 2022, Explore the category, you had 28%, and then you had 48% in Grow. Deepening and centered remained the same. But when we did it again in 2025, now 14% in Explore and 59% in Grow. So you have had a lot of people move along that continuum, particularly from the first to the second stage. Are there any questions? I can see you all. Is there any question, or you can ask Maureen? Like, if at any point you want to interrupt and ask a question, please do so.
I was just curious, as someone that did not take it, sorry.
We'll talk later.
Yeah. You had mentioned that there were two questions asked two different ways that code for this. Are you able to share what the questions are that are trying to?
Grant is asking what the questions were that were the two questions asked two different ways. Are you able to share what those questions were?
Yeah, I'm gonna get it roughly right.
Yeah.
It's basically like describe the current state of your spiritual journey. Like, I'm still exploring my life with Christ. I'm growing deeper in my Christian faith. I'm deepening. I mean, it's very much sort of along the lines of what's printed here.
So, no trick questions. Yeah.
Okay.
One more.
What makes up all norm?
What makes up the all norm?
Oh, good question. Okay. So the Episcopal norm is, we have worked with 390 Episcopal churches at this point. And so that is the Episcopal norm. The all church norm is across the entire database. So the way this started was, it was actually a church who hired McKinsey to come in and help them identify why they had a lot of people coming in the front door, and then they also had a group of people exiting. And they wanted to understand why people were leaving. And that slowly started to lead to questions of like, okay, well, what drives spiritual deepening? And I think that the most interesting finding from that was, I think that before it was often like, if you come into church and you show some interest, people give you a job, right? Like, wouldn't you like to run the spring fair? Would you like to be the treasurer? You have a finance background. And really what this research showed was that having a job in church does not deepen your spiritual maturity. And in a lot of ways, it just takes time away from the opportunity to spend time with God. And so that kind of just opened up a lot, it was like, okay, let's just dig in more to this and try and figure out what actually drives people in terms of deepening a relationship with God. And so that is actually how the research around renewal work started. What happened was Jay, about 14 years ago, started looking at this as an example of how other churches do things that might give him some ideas as a rector for his Episcopal church. And then what he found was that some of it, sometimes the language around it it was just too different. And so he really dug into, okay, as for Episcopalians, what is it? Like, who are we? And so that's why you have this all-church norm, and then you have the Episcopal norm. So the all-church norm is like 31,000 participants across all denominations. It's spread very similar to how denominations fall within the United States, although I will say that it is slightly underrepresented for the Catholic Church. Okay.
Thanks, Loren.
Yeah, no, I'm perfectly happy at any point. Just raise your hand and Maureen can.
If you raise your hand, the mic will come to you. So.
Okay, so if you remember the spiritual life inventory, and the whole reason that we call it an inventory, it is very much an inventory of your beliefs, your practices, and how you put your faith in action. And so the report then starts to break down those things. So we look at beliefs. For example, and you can see grace, the Trinity, the role of the Trinity, Scripture, and you can see it goes on. the Eucharist, baptismal covenant, spiritual growth. So what I would say here, I don't think we have to spend a ton of time on any of these things, but the church has grown significantly in their responses. So you can see that you're consistently sort of meeting or exceeding the Episcopal norm. That is different from the last time we did it. It was much lower. One thing to note, after I just said we weren't going to, big jump in the notion of grace, that notion that God loves me unconditionally and nothing I do or say, or nothing I have done earns that love. Also a big jump in Eucharist and, yep.
What are the three lines that we see? The green bar, the black bar, and then occasionally another light green bar.
So there's the band, the light green band, and then the dark green bar and the light green bar. Lauren, what are they? In case people
Yeah.
can't read it.
Okay, so if we look at grace, 54% of the respondents from Christ Church strongly agree with that statement. That is higher than the Episcopal norm of 47%, although slightly lower than the all-church norm of 66%. In the places where we don't have an all-church norm, like the Eucharist, we only show the Episcopal norm.
And the reason we don't have that data is because the communion is not as central in every denomination. So they don't get those questions.
Correct. And what we have done since we have started working specifically on Episcopalian churches is we have sometimes added to the spiritual life inventory. So in the case where we don't have enough data we have enough data for the Episcopal norm, but we don't have enough data to compare that against the all church, we don't give you that. Okay, so the other place I just want to stop for a minute is spiritual growth. So I believe we are called by God always to be moving deeper in our faith and making a difference in the world. So this number has increased a lot from the last time as well. And I think that that's a positive thing because that's very much what we're talking about here today, this notion that we're all on a journey, how we move deeper. Our faith is not in the same place that it was maybe 5 years ago, maybe even 3 weeks ago, but how we continue to challenge ourselves to move deeper and make a difference. I also want to just point out interfaith conversations here. So typically what happens with each of these belief statements is if we break it down between the 4 stages of the continuum, the people in Explore have a lower percentage. So there may be like 5% strongly believe that statement. Then you move to the Grow group, they're like 30% strongly believe that. As you move to deepening, it gets to like 70%, and typically centered is somewhere close to 100%. So as you move along the continuum, your beliefs deepen. What's interesting about interfaith conversations is this is one of the only belief statements where for people in the Explore and Grow, they are reporting that this is important at a much higher percentage. So like 70% of people in the Explore and Grow will say that interfaith conversations are important. And I point that out because it's an interesting place. If this is so important to people across all stages of the continuum, I think it offers an opportunity for Episcopalian churches. So it's interesting. Like I need to know my faith, right, beliefs if I'm going to understand someone else's faith beliefs and how we're different and similar. So
There's a slight difference in how you put it. It's the people who are in the early stages that show less desire for that interfaith conversation.
they show more.
They show more. So as people go on and get into the deepening and centered, then they are
Still important, but the Explore and Grow are showing as much. Mhm.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to look at practices. And again, the practices have changed since the last two times. And I know your clergy have, they've been doing some good adult formation, and that's reflected here. And you can see the church is sort of consistently meeting or beating the norm. Prayer for others, prayer for guidance is really strong. That seems to be an important spiritual practice for you all. Solitude, we've actually seen this number go up since the pandemic, not surprising. We've all gotten used to being alone. But like reflection on scripture, this number is a lot higher than what it was the last time. So some good things happening there. And again, for the people in that grow category, spiritual practices is going to be an important piece, like giving yourself the time and the space and the discipline to sort of develop a relationship with God. Then here comes the faith in action. So attendance, satisfaction with the service, your small group number went up a ton. Spiritual friendships, all of these are up. And you can see that actually serving is, and serving those in need on my own. We are Episcopalians. This is a key characteristic for who we are as Episcopalians. We are committed to serving. That's an important thing for us. It's actually one of the only places where the Episcopal norm is higher than the all church norm. And again, we're seeing good growth there from you all. So this asks a very specific question. How satisfied are you with the church's role in supporting your spiritual growth? So the last time you all did this in 2022, 33% were extremely or very satisfied. Now 59% are saying that they are extremely or very satisfied. That's an enormous change. And you can see that you're actually higher than the Episcopal norm and the all church norm. What's also interesting is the last time you did it, your explore and grow were the least satisfied. And now you see that that has also come up. So I think I think that the clergy and the leadership have put some things in place, and you all seem to be responding to that. Now, this is the opposite of the last page. So these people are actually saying, I am dissatisfied with the way the church is supporting my spiritual growth. And again, it's a small number, it's 13. So we're not going to, we're going to take that into account as we look at it, but what I do when I look at these reports is you continue to look at the data points and sort of staying at the 30,000 foot level, like where do they continue to point you? So for me, this is really interesting because the 5 priorities have really changed from the last time that you did it. So the last time that you did the spiritual life inventory, the priorities of the dissatisfied were things like, I want to belong. I want worship that's challenging and thought-provoking. I want to be empowered to serve. I would like clergy and lay to model and reinforce. So now the priorities are, I want an opportunity to grow spiritually through relationship with others. That's really what we've kind of been talking about here, and that you're seeing that that's the number one priority for these 13 people. I want clergy and lay to model and reinforce. Again, if you're in those first 2 stages, you need help in trying to figure out how to do this. Use and develop my spiritual gifts, inspires the use of the Book of Common Prayer. That's not just like, this is my first day in church. This is like, okay, I'd like to dig in a little bit more to what it means to be an Episcopalian. And number 5, helps me develop a relationship with Jesus. You don't see helps me develop a relationship with Jesus. Again, that's like just the wording of that. That is not someone who's like coming to church for the first time. So for me, when I look at the priorities of the dissatisfied, it's showing an increase in maturity than the last time. So
we've been looking at this report, and if you remember a couple weeks ago, our forum topic was how to use the Book of Common Prayer in Sunday worship. So when we talk about, is this like, does this data help us? Yes. So thanks to people who will be honest and tell us not only what they're satisfied with, but also what they're dissatisfied with. So.
Okay. So what we also do is churches are, first of all, I think one of the things that I should have said at the beginning is I think it's really important that none of this report is in any way evaluatory. It's meant to provide information as to where the church is currently so that you can all make decisions around what formation resources you want to do, what activities you want to focus on, right? The idea that we can't do everything, so let's do things that are really helpful to people in where they are. Sometimes I've worked with churches, and they'll have like 0% in centered. I actually just had a church that had 0% in centered, and we did the data call, and they were just so bummed that not even the rector showed up in centered. And I said it's really missing the point of this. The idea isn't that, 100% have to be in centered and then you get a gold star and you just can put this up on a shelf and you don't have to do renewal works. The idea of this page is to say that if 100% of the congregation placed themselves into centered, what they would need to go forward, because we are always called by God to be moving deeper in our faith and making a difference in the world, what they would need would be entirely different than if 100% of the congregation put themselves in exploring.
Congregation that was 100% centered, where's everybody else? Time to grow, right? And bring in people who are exploring and growing in their faith.
Yeah. I mean, and you can see you're not that different than the Episcopal norm at this point. And we like to say, like, the Episcopal Church, like, we're rooted and restless. So the rooted is like the magistry of the liturgy and the tradition and the beauty of the service. The fact that we're a large tent and, we can all sit together happily. We don't all have to believe the same things, but we coexist together. But sometimes, like, the magistry and the liturgy and we even just the words that we use in my church, the front entrance is called a narthex, and so all the time we're directing people to the narthex, and it's like, what does that even mean? So I mean, some of I think the beauty and the rootedness of the Episcopal faith is a special piece of it, but we're really good at the rooted part. Are we challenging ourselves to the restless part? And again, that's just the opportunity of Renewal Works, like the opportunity to open that conversation around that. How you do that and why you do that is entirely up to you all. Yep.
So the data that you are showing us shows that we're basically doing a good job here, so that's good. Do you see the same type of results along the whole spectrum of the data that you're getting both in the Episcopalian churches and in other churches from basically the time that you had the COVID outbreak to now? Is it similar trends, or are we one of the minority trends?
Yeah, no, what I would say is I think that the reasons, so churches do Renewal Works for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's a rector search, sometimes it's like, they just want information around formation, whatever it is. But I would say before COVID, churches were looking a lot at like, oh, I'd like to know what other denominations are doing. I think, with COVID, 40% of the church walked out. And then you're starting to see that come back, not totally, but about 90% of churches sort of report that they're back to sort of regular average Sunday attendance levels. But the makeup of the church is different. And so what we see a lot of churches now coming to Renewal Works for is to be like, I would like to get a pulse on where my people are now, because we've just sort of been through this pandemic, and which is not an answer to your question. I think the trends are the same across the board. I mean, I think some of the things that we're seeing anecdotally, like solitude, the database is so big at this point that to move the database takes a lot of information, a lot of data change. And so the statistician who we work with, like, he doesn't like to make big statements yet because we don't have that much information out. But yes, I think we're seeing that across the board.
All right.
Okay, I just want to spend it's 9, okay, 10:50. So, okay, this I'm just going to talk about quickly. So this is the Spiritual Vitality Index. So sometimes churches are like, okay, we get who we are. We have a sense of what you're saying, where we are. We'd like to just know where we stand within the whole church, or the all church database. And so the Spiritual Vitality Index was created to give churches an example of that. So last time you all did that, you showed up as a 49, a Spiritual Vitality Index of 49. And now you're showing up as 57. That's an enormous change. The church's role is still showing up as in red. Personal spiritual practices in yellow, because again, you sort of have that big group in the second stage, so the opportunity for personal spiritual practices. But again, it's sort of, if you add that explore and grow group together, it's a lot of people who need the church to help continue to model and teach and show. But I think that that's just an enormous change. And then also, I just wanted to show you one more thing quickly, and then I was going to ask any questions.
Just before you move on from that, what is the color coding of those elements mean?
So the red being yellow, the church red, and the personal practice is yellow. What does that indicate?
Okay, so red is like your biggest opportunity area. It's the thing that you should address first. It's like, it's important to me and I'm not totally satisfied with the way it's being done. Yellow is like a flashing yellow light. Green is like, it's a positive. And if there's no color, it's like the church is kind of meeting the mark in that area, but it's not really a positive or a negative. It's sort of average. Okay, so this is now a different report. This is sort of the tracking report that compares the two results. But I just wanted to show you that in terms of the tracking report between the two, the church has shown improvement in organized church activities, personal spiritual practices, and spiritual activities with other. You have grown in those areas compared to the last time you did it. And the other thing I wanted to show you was this. So these are the 5 best practices. And we're not going to get into this today, although I'm happy to come back and talk about Renewal Works in this report for as long as anybody wants to. But there are 5 best practices. And again, the way something turns red is it's highly important to me, and I'm not satisfied with the way it's currently being done. And for you all, in comparison of the two, all of your best practices showed up as green, as increasing.
Hard to see the black lettering.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
There we go.
So get people moving, heart of the leader, embed the Bible, create ownership, pastor the community. So heart of the leader is in the center. It's that notion of the leadership, everyone rowing in the same direction, everyone focused in the same place, teaching, modeling, showing, also committing myself to, as a spiritual leader, like, what am I committing to in terms of my faith? How am I developing my faith and living that out in the world? getting people moving is like, okay, let's create on-ramps. And I think you guys have done a really good job of that in talking with Maureen of sort of about the things that leadership has been doing over the last couple of years, whether it's like adult formation or you've developed some new ministries. For example, her talk about like the Book of Common Prayer and how you're going to, is it like one sheet or something, like responding to the interest of people in terms of what they want to learn about, embedding the Bible more deeply into the life of the church. So what happens here is there's 5 best practices, but embedding the Bible more deeply into the life of the church is highly transformative for people in every stage of the continuum. So sometimes churches say, okay, just tell us, like, let's just do one thing. And so embedding the Bible more deeply into the life of the church is always a good idea. But I think we just need to be very mindful of who we are as Episcopalians and that we do this in a way that is true to us as Episcopalians. So, and the other thing is, whenever we say embed the Bible more deeply into the life of the church, the rector says, I have tried Bible study and no one comes. And that Bible study is a program. What we're talking about here is creating a culture that values time with Scripture. So churches that embed the Bible and make that their culture, it's things like the prayer shawl, the altar guild, those meetings start with Bible reflection, whether a rector is present or not. There's an expectation in the church that I'm going to spend some time pre-reading the readings before I come to church on Sunday. I'm just making up examples, but those are not programs. They don't take any resources and time of your leadership, but they create a sense of that this is an important aspect of our community. Creating ownership is that like I have some personal responsibility here. I have some skin in the game, and pastoring the community is serving, living out our faith. How are we serving? One thing we've seen since the pandemic, and I would say this is more specific to Episcopal churches, is it's always been important that our church is considered an important resource for the community. Now people want the church to be seen as a leader within their community. Okay, so I have talked a lot. I'm going to take questions, but then I'm going to actually turn it back to you all, because I think the beauty of Renewal Works is we kind of give you this data. You guys can hash it out, agree with it, disagree with it, let it make you think a little bit. But what we usually do is we do this dot exercise where you guys are going to take a look at in front of you are the basic beliefs of the Episcopal Church, and you are going to read through and decide the 5 that are most important to you. And you can place your 5 stickers all on one. You can put them 2 and 3. You can do 5 different, however you want to do it. But we're going to let everyone participate in that. And then we are going to see where are the places where you feel are most important. And I like this exercise because it gives a sense of, sometimes we'll say to people like, why do you come here? What is it about this church and this group of people that is important to you and pulls you? And so this starts to get at that notion of like, what is your culture? Like, what is it that you value? So red is for where you give your heart, what's most important to you. And then green is the opportunity to say, okay, I heard what you said. I've heard that, this notion of maybe I have a role in this. Maybe, what can the church do to help me? So the green is, here's where I'd like to know more about. Here's where I'd like to go a little deeper. And I think this is sort of the first step. I think the clergy has planned for subsequent weeks to think about, okay, let's dig into some of these belief statements and start to look at them further as a way of thinking about our faith and our community.
Any last questions before we go on to the exercise?
My question is, was there age considered in these thoughts?
Yes.
Somebody at 18 versus somebody at 65 have a different view.
Age was definitely considered. It's and we have the graphic on that in the beginning of the report. So it's one of the questions that you answered when you do the survey, the inventory. Jean, you had a question? No? All right. Oh,
Was the demographic similar from 2022 to now?
did our demographic stay similar from 22 to now in terms of age, or did it change?
It did. What changed was you had an increase in the 1 to 5 years of membership. So you had new people coming in, but the demographics largely stayed the same, although the sample size was a little smaller.
All right. Thank you, Loren.
Yeah.
It's been really great to work with you over these last 3 years. I really value our
been-
partnership.
It's been really fun to work with you all too. It's also, I mean, I think it's really awesome to see such a change over such a short period of time. So there's obviously a lot happening at Christ Church, and you guys will all be really excited about what a vibrant community you have. So,
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Thanks, Loren. We'll talk to you
Okay.
soon.
be well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so what you have in front of you is the dot exercise. And so the idea is while you're sitting here at the table to read through the beliefs and the practices. Now you're not going to say, okay, I need to pick, my top beliefs and then my top practices. Look at all 26 statements. Which one jumps out at, or however many, jump out at you as like, oh, this is where my heart is. I'm really confident about this. Yes, yes, yes. And mark that, put an R on it, right? Because that's going to be your red sticker. And then when you're looking through it and you're thinking, I wish I was better at this one, whatever it is for you, put a G on that, because that's going to be your green stickers. That way you don't have to come up to the boards and read all of these things, trying to look over each other off the boards. You can figure it out on your sheets and then come up, and I'll move the boards down so they're not behind a table. So we've got pens on the tables, we've got stickers on the tables. If we run out of red and green stickers, I have more stickers. So don't feel limited. If you're like, I want to use 10 stickers, I have more stickers. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand and I'll come around and give you a hand.
So we're going to eventually put our stickers
Yes.
up here?
So yeah, you want to mark on your sheet where you're going to want your stickers up here.
Okay.
And you can see the 8 o'clock attendees did this already.
Oh.
And then next week, Father Drew and I are going to talk about where your stickers landed and talk about our beliefs and practices so we understand where we are.
Is this going to be published somewhere for those of us who won't be here next week?
Yes. Forum is online
Okay.
and can be watched later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lori, what about, do you have any extra pens?
I do.
I need a pen. Yeah.
You guys both got one.
One that sticks in your.
Have a pin.
Share, thank you. We can share.
Oh, there's plenty. It's all good. Yeah.
I'm a little confused. Red is really important to me.
Red is where your heart is.
But I'm really good at it, or like, this is really important to me. It's not the same thing as, I think we're nailing it.
This is you personally. So this is not what you think of the community. It's you. It's
No, but like I'm saying, what's really important to me and what I feel really confident in are not necessarily the same. Would that be?
That's for you to work out, Eric. No, I mean, if it's an area where it's really important to me and I'm still growing in it, I'm not getting it yet, I'm not feeling confident, that's growing. You're growing in that.
So that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. If you're like, I'm really good at this. Red.
That's an art.
Yep.
Okay.
Colleen, you gotta do it.
Oh, I'm gonna do it during the week. I'm
Okay.
gonna let them all do it.
Okay.
I volunteer to do it. I promise I will do it though.
It's like I'm proctoring an exam.
I know, right? It kind of feels like that.
Yeah, I have extra stickers too, so don't be shy. And then next Sunday, we'll take a few minutes for the people that weren't here today, but it's not a vote early, vote often kind of situation.
We don't get an early ballot.
Well, you did, but you don't get a second ballot.